For 14,000 years, the Aurelion Dominion had ruled the known galaxy. Their borders stretched across 4 spiral arms, swallowing entire civilizations before those species even understood what war truly meant. Their fleets numbered in the tens of millions. Their weapons could extinguish stars. Their name alone was enough to silence rebellion on 1,000 worlds. Every species that encountered them was given the same choice:
submit or be erased.
There had never been a third option. And there had never been a failure. Supreme Commander Vale Kor stood at the center of the Dominion flagship Eternal Ascendancy, his gaze fixed on the endless field of stars beyond the viewing chamber. His armor, forged from neutron-forged alloys, shimmered with a faint violet glow, each mark etched into its surface, representing a conquered system. There were hundreds. He had led the annihilation of 63 civilizations personally. He had crushed uprisings across entire sectors without losing a single fleet. He had never known defeat. Behind him, the command deck moved with perfect precision. Officers issued commands. Data streams flowed across holographic displays. Entire star systems were reduced to calculations, probabilities, outcomes. War to the Dominion was no longer chaos. It was mathematics. "Commander," a voice interrupted. Vale Kor did not turn immediately. Interruptions were rare. "Necessary. Speak." A younger officer stepped forward, her posture rigid but her tone edged with something unfamiliar: hesitation. "We have reached the outer boundary of the prohibited region." That made him turn. The holographic display shifted instantly, zooming into a dark section of mapped space. Unlike the rest of the galaxy, bright with trade routes, colonies, and military outposts, this region was empty. Unnaturally empty. No signals. No colonies. No recorded activity. Just a single designation that had remained unchanged for over 10 millennia. Sector Null. Restricted. Vale Kor studied it in silence. He remembered the old archives. The ones most dismissed as irrelevant relics of a less advanced age. Records left behind by a long-vanished precursor civilization, beings who had once possessed technology even the Dominion had yet to fully replicate. At every border of this region, those ancient beings had left the same message. Not in one language, but in all of them. A warning translated across time itself. Do not enter. Do not search.
Do not wake them.
Vale Kor felt no fear as he looked upon those words. Only curiosity. And something else.
Opportunity.
"Scans?" he asked. "Nothing, Commander. No defenses. No detectable civilizations. It appears empty." A slow, cold smile formed on his face. "Then it is ours." The officer hesitated. "Commander, the warnings. The precursors are dust," Vale Kor said flatly. "Their fears died with them." He stepped forward, placing a hand against the projection of the silent region. "For 14,000 years, we have conquered everything before us." His voice lowered, carrying across the command deck like a quiet certainty. "There is nothing left in this galaxy that can threaten us." A pause. Then the command that would change everything. "Prepare a reconnaissance fleet." Outside, in the silent darkness of Sector Null, something was already watching. The reconnaissance fleet crossed the boundary of Sector Null in perfect formation. 20 warships, each one capable of erasing a planet's surface in minutes. Each one commanded by officers who had never known hesitation, never known fear. As they passed beyond the last Dominion beacon, something changed. At first it was subtle, too subtle for most to notice. The stars themselves seemed quieter. Not dimmer, not fewer. Just distant, as if the light took longer to reach them. "Report," Captain Rethvar demanded from the bridge of the lead cruiser, Sovereign Edge. "All systems operational," his sensor officer replied. "No anomalies detected." But that wasn't entirely true. There were anomalies. They just didn't make sense. "No signals," another officer added. "No subspace noise. No debris. No radiation signatures. It's as if..." He hesitated. As if what? As if nothing has ever been here. That earned a brief silence. Because that was impossible. In a galaxy as old and crowded as theirs, empty space did not exist. Not like this. Not this clean. Not this untouched. Continue forward, Rethvar ordered. Deploy long-range probes. I want full-spectrum scans of every astronomical unit. Yes, Captain. The fleet advanced deeper. Hours passed. Then days. The reports remained the same. Nothing. No civilizations. No ruins. No signs of past conflict. Not even natural anomalies. It was a void so perfect it felt artificial. On the third day, they found the first object. It appeared suddenly on long-range sensors. A small metallic construct drifting in open space. Unknown object detected, the sensor officer announced. No power signature. No active systems. Display it. The holographic projection flickered to life. The object was simple. Primitive. A small probe, barely larger than a shuttle pod, its surface scarred by micrometeor impacts and age. Very old age. Origin? Rethvar asked. Unknown. But its design, the officer frowned. It's not Dominion. Not precursor either. Then what is it? Another pause. It shouldn't be here. That was not an answer. Retrieve it, Rethvar ordered. A shuttle was dispatched. Minutes later, the object was brought into the hangar bay. Up close, it was even stranger. Crude construction, basic materials, and attached to its surface, a disc, circular, golden, covered in engraved markings. What am I looking at? Rethvar asked as he entered the bay. A science officer stepped forward, visibly unsettled. We believe it's a message. A message, he repeated. From who? That's the problem, Captain. She gestured toward the disk. It's not encoded in any known galactic system. But the structure, it's intentional. Mathematical. Linguistic. Visual. Translate it. We're trying. Rethvar studied the object. It looked harmless, almost childish, like something created by a species that had only just discovered the stars. Power it, he said. We're not sure that's safe. He turned slowly. Are you suggesting this primitive artifact is a threat to a Dominion warship? No, Captain, but... Then activate it. Reluctantly, the science team complied. Energy surged into the ancient device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then...
Sound. Soft.
Unfamiliar. Rhythmic. The entire bay fell silent as the audio filled the air. Music. Strange, layered, almost emotional. Then images followed, projected from the disk itself. A world appeared.
Blue. Green.
Covered in oceans and land masses. Cloud systems drifting across its atmosphere. A living planet. Then structures. Cities. Primitive compared to Dominion standards, but organized. Evolving. Then, the beings. Bipedal. Soft-skinned. No natural armor. No visible weapons. They moved with an awkward kind of balance. Fragile. Vulnerable. What species is this? Rethvar asked. The science officer swallowed. We don't know. More images flashed. The beings interacting. Communicating. Launching crude spacecraft. Exploring their own system. This recording is ancient, she added. Thousands of years old, at least. Rethvar narrowed his eyes. So this species achieved spaceflight and sent this into the void? Yes. And this is all they were capable of. At the time, yes. He let out a quiet breath. A primitive species. Barely evolved. Barely advanced. And yet, they had sent a message into deep space. A greeting. An introduction. A declaration of existence. He turned away from the projection. Log it, he said. Catalog the species. Mark them for future assimilation. The science officer hesitated. Captain, there's something else. Rethvar stopped.
What?
She adjusted the display. Trajectory analysis of the probe. A new hologram appeared.
A path.
A long, drifting arc through space. It originated deep within Sector Null. Not outside it. Inside. This probe didn't enter the region, she said quietly. It came from within it. Silence fell over the bay. For the first time since entering Sector Null, something felt wrong. Very wrong. And far beyond the fleet's position, in the silent darkness between stars, something ancient finally noticed them. The report reached Supreme Commander Vale Core within hours. He reviewed it in silence. The recovered probe, the golden disk, the images of the soft-skinned bipeds calling themselves humans. Primitive. That was the only word that mattered. They launched this thousands of years ago? Vale Core asked. Yes, Commander, the intelligence officer replied. At the time, their technology was barely capable of leaving their own planetary system. And now, a pause. Unknown. Vale Core leaned back slightly, considering. Best case, they advanced. Worst case, they went extinct. Vale Core gave a faint, dismissive exhale. Then, either way, irrelevant. The officer hesitated. Commander, there is still the matter of the precursor warnings. Vale Core's gaze sharpened. The same warnings left by a civilization that no longer exists. Yes, but then they have already been proven meaningless. The officer fell silent. Vale Core stood and approached the central display. The hologram shifted, zooming into the depths of Sector Null. A faint marker now pulsed where the probe's trajectory originated. Locate their system. We are attempting to triangulate based on the probe's drift pattern. Initial estimates suggest a star near the sector's core. How many inhabited worlds detected? None so far. Vale Core allowed himself a small smile. No defenses. No expansion. No signal traffic. He turned back to the room. This is not a threat. No one argued, because by every known metric, it wasn't. A species that had once been primitive. A region with no visible activity. No fleets. No infrastructure. No resistance. It didn't fit the profile of danger. It fit the profile of conquest. Prepare an expeditionary force, Vale Core ordered. Size, Commander? He didn't hesitate. 40 ships. That was all. 40 warships from the Aurelion Dominion were enough to subjugate entire sectors. More than enough for a forgotten species hiding in a silent region of space. And the objective? The officer asked. Vale Core's voice remained calm. Assessment and acquisition. He began walking toward the exit. If the species still exists, we evaluate its usefulness. And if it resists? Vale Core paused just long enough to answer. Then we remind them why resistance is irrelevant. The fleet departed within the hour. 40 ships, led by Captain Rethvar, each vessel armed, shielded, and prepared for total domination. As they crossed deeper into Sector Null, the silence returned. No signals, no warnings, no response. It was as if their presence meant nothing. Still no contact. Rethvar asked. None, Captain. Any change in sensor readings? No, Captain. The region remains empty. That word again. Empty. Rethvar didn't like it, but he ignored the feeling, because feelings were not data. And data said this mission would be simple. They passed the point where the probe had been recovered. Then beyond it, deeper still, on the second day they found something. A structure. Small. Orbiting a distant star. Magnify. Rethvar ordered. The image sharpened. It was a station.
Primitive in design.
Minimal armament. Minimal shielding. Barely operational by Dominion standards. Life signs. Detected. Limited population. Rethvar studied it. This is their outpost. It appears so. He felt a flicker of disappointment. This was what the precursors had feared? This? A weak, isolated species clinging to outdated technology? Open a channel, he said. No response. Of course. He leaned back slightly. They probably don't even understand our communication protocols. A few officers allowed themselves small, amused expressions. Shall we proceed with standard contact procedure? Rethvar considered it, then shook his head.
No.
He had no interest in diplomacy with a species this far beneath them. Send a warning signal. Inform them they are now under Dominion authority. Yes, Captain. The transmission was sent. A simple message.
Clear. Direct.
Non-negotiable. Silence followed. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Still nothing. Rethvar exhaled slowly. Predictable. Shall we deploy boarding teams? He was about to answer when the sensors reacted. Captain, we're detecting movement. His attention snapped back to the display. Where? Inside the station. Launching ships.
No.
A pause. Then what? They're powering down. Rethvar frowned. Powering down? Yes, Captain. Systems shutting off. One by one. The station went dark.
Completely.
No signals. No life signs. Nothing. They just shut everything off, one officer muttered. Rethvar stared at the dead station. No panic. No defense. No attempt to communicate. Just silence. Cowards, another officer said. Or compliant, someone else added. Rethvar didn't respond immediately, because something about it didn't feel like surrender. It felt like preparation. But for what? He pushed the thought aside. Continue toward the core system, he ordered. If this is their outer defense. He looked at the silent station one last time. Then this will be over quickly. The fleet moved on. Behind them, the dark station remained. Still. Silent. Waiting. And far ahead, in the depths of their destination, something had already begun to move. The first ship disappeared without warning. No explosion. No distress signal. No system failure. One moment, the cruiser Vigilant Sphere was in formation. The next, it was gone. Report, Captain Rethvar said immediately.
His voice was calm.
Controlled. But the bridge had already gone silent. We lost contact, the sensor officer stammered. No debris, no energy spike, no warp signature. It's just gone. Define gone. It's not on any scan, Captain. Not cloaked. Not disabled. It's simply not there. Rethvar stepped forward slowly. Rerun the data. We already did. Do it again. The officer obeyed. Every system confirmed the same thing. The ship had vanished. Completely. Rethvar's eyes narrowed. Mechanical failure? Impossible. All systems were green across the fleet. External interference? No detectable source. Silence spread across the bridge. Because there was only one remaining explanation. And it didn't make sense. Reform the formation, Rethvar ordered. Tighten spacing. No ship moves independently. Yes, Captain. The fleet shifted instantly, closing ranks. 40 ships became a single unit. No gaps. No weaknesses. No room for error. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Nothing else happened. No anomalies. No threats. No signs of whatever had taken the Vigilant Sphere. Slowly, tension began to ease. Perhaps it was a sensor malfunction, one officer suggested quietly. Across every system, another replied. Rethvar said nothing, because he didn't believe that. But belief wasn't evidence. And without evidence, there was no threat. Maintain course, he said. The second ship vanished 3 hours later. This time they saw it happen. Captain. The tactical display flickered. For a fraction of a second, something distorted the space around the cruiser Iron Halo. Not a weapon. Not an explosion. Reality itself seemed to bend. Then snap. The ship was gone. Just like the first. No wreckage. No trace. Nothing. What was that? Someone whispered. No one answered. Because no one knew. Full scan. Rethvar snapped. Everything. I want every wavelength, every spectrum. Find it. The sensors flared to life. Deep scans. Wide scans. Subspace sweeps. Quantum echoes. Nothing. There was nothing there. Nothing that could explain what they had just witnessed. Captain, the sensor officer said slowly, there's no energy signature. Whatever did this didn't leave a trace. That's not possible. I know. Rethvar's jaw tightened. For the first time since entering Sector Null, he felt it. Not fear. Not yet. But something close. Send a message to command, he ordered. What classification? Rethvar hesitated for half a second. Then,
anomaly.
That word carried weight. It meant something had occurred that Dominion science could not immediately explain. It meant uncertainty. And the Dominion did not tolerate uncertainty. The transmission was sent, but no response came back. Communication delay? Rethvar asked. No, Captain. Then where is the reply? Another pause. We're not receiving confirmation that the message was delivered. Rethvar turned sharply. Explain. It's as if the signal never left the region. Now the silence felt different. Heavier. Watching. Test outbound communication again. They did. Multiple frequencies. Multiple methods. Every transmission disappeared into the void. No bounce. No echo. No return. It was like shouting into nothing, and getting less than silence in return. Captain, the communications officer said carefully, we may be isolated. Rethvar didn't respond immediately. He stared at the stars ahead, at the destination they were still moving toward. The system where the probe had originated, where the humans were supposed to be. Primitive.
Weak.
Irrelevant. Turn the fleet around, one officer said suddenly. All eyes shifted. That suggestion alone bordered on insubordination. But no one dismissed it, because now it made sense. We have lost 2 ships without explanation, the officer continued. We have no communication with command. We are operating without intelligence. This is no longer a standard mission. Rethvar remained silent, thinking, calculating, weighing doctrine against reality. The Dominion did not retreat. The Dominion did not hesitate. But the Dominion also did not ignore data. And the data was wrong. Before he could respond, the sensors triggered again. Contact. Every screen lit up. Not behind them. Not beside them. Ahead. At their destination. Display. The image resolved slowly. A star system. Planets. Asteroid fields.
Debris.
Structures. Ships. Thousands of them. The entire bridge froze. Because, just hours ago, this system had shown nothing. Impossible, someone whispered. Confirm readings, Rethvar said. Confirmed. Cloaking.
No.
These ships weren't hidden, they weren't there. The fleet ahead did not move. Did not signal. Did not react. They were just waiting. And then, a transmission came through.
Clear.
Instant. As if distance didn't exist. A human voice.
Calm. Cold.
Controlled. You were warned. The bridge went silent. Every eye locked onto the transmission feed. You entered restricted space. The voice continued. You ignored the beacons. You ignored the silence. You ignored the first message. Rethvar's claws tightened against the command console. First message? What first message? Then he realized.
The probe.
The disk. That wasn't a greeting. It was a warning. You will not receive another, the human voice said.
A pause.
Then,
leave. Now.
No threat. No anger. No fear. Just certainty. Rethvar stared at the display. At the thousands of ships ahead. At the 2 missing ships behind him. At the silence surrounding everything. For the first time, the mission no longer felt like conquest. It felt like a mistake. A very big one. But the Dominion did not retreat. And neither would he. Prepare weapons, Rethvar said quietly. Across the fleet, systems came online. Energy built. Targeting systems locked. The human fleet did not react. Not even slightly. And somewhere deep in that silent system, something else was watching. Something far older than the ships. Far older than the war. And it was beginning to wake. Fire. The order left Captain Rethvar's mouth without hesitation. 40 Dominion warships responded instantly. Beams of concentrated stellar energy tore across space, converging on the nearest human vessels. Missiles followed, dozens then hundreds, tracking targets with perfect precision. The void lit up. For a brief moment, it looked like victory. Then, nothing. The explosions faded. The light died. And the human ships were still there. No damage detected, the tactical officer said slowly. Rethvar's eyes narrowed. Impossible. We are reading full shield integrity across all visible targets. That was a full volley. Yes, Captain. Silence gripped the bridge. Because Dominion weapons did not fail. They erased. Adjust targeting, Rethvar ordered. Focus fire on a single ship. Maximum output. Yes, Captain. Every weapon system recalibrated. One target. One ship. A smaller vessel near the edge of the formation. Fire. This time, the attack was overwhelming. A concentrated beam, enough to split a planet's crust, struck the human ship directly. For a fraction of a second, it worked. The ship's shields flickered. Its hull glowed under the impact. Then, it stabilized,
Held. And did not break.
"That's not possible," someone whispered. The human fleet still hadn't moved, hadn't fired, hadn't responded. They were just watching. Then the transmission returned. Same voice, same tone.
Calm.
"You chose violence." No anger, no emotion, just confirmation. Rethvar felt something shift in the air. Not physically, not something sensors could detect, but something real, like a line had just been crossed. "All ships," the voice continued. "You are now classified as hostile." A pause. Then, engagement authorized. The human fleet moved. Not in formation. Not in any pattern the Dominion recognized. They didn't advance. They didn't charge. They appeared. One moment they were distant. The next, they were everywhere. Between Dominion ships. Behind them. Above. Below. Inside their formation. "Huh," the tactical officer shouted. "Spatial distortion detected." Another yelled. "They're bypassing distance." "Impossible." "It's happening." The first Dominion ship exploded. Not from a direct hit. From within. Its reactor spiked without warning. Then tore itself apart. "Internal breach," someone shouted. "Cause." "Unknown." A second ship lost power. Completely. Dead in space. Then a human vessel slid past it, silent, precise, and fired a single shot. The ship split clean in half. "They're targeting systems, not hulls," the tactical officer yelled. "Weapons, engines, reactors. They're disabling us." Rethvar gripped the command rail. "Return fire. All ships, engage freely." Chaos erupted. Dominion ships fired in every direction. But the humans didn't behave like any enemy they had ever faced. They didn't hold positions, didn't form lines, didn't follow predictable paths. They moved like a storm, unstructured, uncontrolled, impossible to track. And then, Rethvar saw something that made no sense. A human ship.
Small.
Damaged. Its hull burning. Its engines failing. It was going to be destroyed. There was no escape. But instead of retreating, it accelerated. Directly toward a Dominion cruiser. "Collision course," someone shouted. "They can't. They are." The human ship broadcast a signal. "Open channel. All frequencies." A single word. "Send it through," Rethvar ordered. The bridge speakers activated. And the word came through.
Loud. Clear.
Almost joyful. "Waiti." The human ship slammed into the cruiser. The explosion was massive. Both vessels vanished in a blinding flash. Silence followed. For half a second. Then the humans
Laughed.
The intercepted transmissions filled the bridge. Human voices.
Dozens of them.
Hundreds.
Calm.
Excited. Even amused. They were coordinating attacks. Calling targets. Making jokes. "They're enjoying this," one officer whispered. Another Dominion ship was hit. Its weapons disabled. Its engines gone. Drifting. Helpless. A human vessel passed by. Close enough to see inside. For a brief moment, Rethvar saw them. The humans. On their bridge. Working. Focused. And one of them was smiling. Not a cruel smile. Not a hateful one. Just calm.
Certain.
Like they already knew how this would end. "Captain," the sensor officer shouted. "We're losing ships. 10, 15, 20. The numbers climbed rapidly. Too rapidly. "Retreat," someone yelled. "We can't maintain formation. They're inside our systems." Rethvar didn't move.
Didn't speak.
Didn't react. Because he was watching the tactical display. And for the first time in his entire career, he didn't understand what he was seeing. 40 ships. Reduced to half. In minutes. This isn't warfare, he said quietly. It wasn't. It was something else. Something the Dominion had never encountered before. Not strategy. Not tactics. Not even technology. It was control. The humans weren't trying to win. They had already decided the outcome. Captain, the communications officer shouted. Incoming transmission. The same voice returned. Unchanged. Unshaken. We warned you. A pause. This is your final courtesy. Another explosion lit up the void. Another Dominion ship gone. Leave, the voice said, or we will finish this. Reth-Var stared at the burning remains of his fleet, at the ships still fighting.
Still dying.
Still trying to understand. For the first time in his life, he hesitated, because this enemy was not what they were supposed to be, and deep down, he realized something terrifying. This wasn't their full strength. Not even close. The transmission reached the Dominion High Command within minutes. What remained of the reconnaissance fleet limped back across the boundary of Sector Null, damaged, scattered, and silent. Out of 40 ships, 17 returned. None intact. None victorious. Supreme Commander Vale Kor stood in the war chamber as the full report played before him. Visual recordings. Sensor logs. Audio intercepts. Every second of the encounter. Every impossible moment. The room was silent. Not because there was nothing to say, but because no one wanted to say it first. They destroyed 23 warships, one of the senior strategists said finally. 17 survived. Another corrected. 17 fled. That word hung in the air.
Fled.
It did not belong in Dominion vocabulary. Vale Kor did not react. He watched the footage again. Human ships appearing from nowhere. Weapons that bypass shields. Precision strikes disabling entire fleets. And the voices?
Calm.
Controlled. Unafraid. They warned us, one officer said quietly. Vale Kor turned his head slightly. Are you suggesting we should have listened? No, Commander, Because I seem to recall, Vale Kor interrupted, his voice cold, that the Dominion does not take orders from unidentified species hiding in unclaimed space.
Silence.
The precursors issued warnings as well. Another added carefully. Perhaps there is a connection. The precursors are extinct, Vale Kor said flatly. If they feared this region, it is because they lacked the strength to control it. He stepped forward, activating the central display. Sector Null expanded across the room. Highlighted.
Marked.
Now no longer empty. Now occupied. This species, Vale Kor continued, has revealed 3 critical facts. He raised one finger. They possess advanced stealth or spatial manipulation technology. A second. They are capable of coordinated fleet-scale combat. A third. They believe themselves strong enough to threaten us. He lowered his hand. That last point is the only one that matters. The room shifted, not physically, but emotionally, because everyone understood what that meant. This is not a threat, Vale Kor said. This is an insult. No one spoke after that, because now, the direction was clear. What are your orders, Commander? A high-ranking admiral asked. Vale Kor did not hesitate. Mobilize the second expansion fleet. A ripple of reaction moved through the chamber. That fleet was not used lightly. Size? The admiral asked. Vale Kor's eyes remained fixed on the display. 800 ships. Silence. Then, Commander, that is excessive for a single system. Vale Kor turned slowly. Is it? The admiral did not respond. They destroyed 40 of ours. Vale Kor continued. They believe that gives them leverage, that it allows them to issue warnings, to dictate terms. His voice dropped. That belief must be corrected. Another officer stepped forward. Commander, if their capabilities are unknown, committing a fleet of that size without further analysis. Analysis? Vale Kor repeated.
Yes.
We could observe, study their technology, identify weaknesses. Vale Kor cut him off with a single gesture. We already identified their weakness. The room went still. They showed restraint. No one moved. No one spoke. Because that was not something the Dominion understood. They could have destroyed the entire reconnaissance fleet. Vale Corps continued. Instead, they allowed survivors. They issued warnings. They offered retreat. He stepped closer. That is not strength. His voice hardened. That is hesitation. And hesitation was weakness. They believed themselves civilized, he said.
Moral.
Controlled. A faint, cold smile formed. Then we will show them what civilization looks like when it is stripped away. The command was given. The decision made. Prepare the fleet. Across Dominion space, signals spread. Shipyards activated. Fleets redirected. Weapons armed. 800 warships began to assemble. Massive carriers. Planet-breaking dreadnoughts. Siege platforms capable of turning entire worlds into ash. At the center of it all, a single flagship, the Oblivion Throne. And aboard it, Admiral Cale Draven. He was everything the Dominion valued. Efficient, uncompromising, unstoppable. He had ended 12 wars, erased 3 species, crushed rebellions before they could spread. He had never lost. Vale Corps met him before departure. You have reviewed the reports? Vale Corps asked. I have. And your assessment? Draven's answer was immediate. They are dangerous. A pause. But not enough. Vale Corps studied him. You are certain? Draven nodded. They rely on unpredictability, shock tactics, psychological disruption. He looked toward the star map. But chaos is only effective once. He turned back. They will not surprise me twice. Vale Corps considered that, then gave a single nod. Then end this. The fleet departed. 800 ships, a force large enough to conquer entire civilizations. As they approached Sector Null, the silence returned. No signals, no resistance, no warning. It was as if nothing had happened, as if the destruction of 40 Dominion warships had meant nothing at all. Admiral Draven stood on the bridge of the Oblivion Throne, watching the empty void ahead. They are hiding, one of his officers said. Good, Draven replied. Let them. Because hiding only delayed the inevitable. Advance. The fleet moved forward, unstoppable, unchallenged.
Certain.
And deep within Sector Null, the humans watched, not with fear, not with urgency, but with something far more dangerous. Preparation. The second expansion fleet entered the inner system of Sector Null without resistance. 800 Dominion warships moved in perfect formation, engines burning like artificial stars, weapons primed for annihilation. Ahead of them, a single planet.
Blue. Green. Alive.
Target confirmed, the tactical officer reported. Primary world located. Minimal orbital defenses detected. Admiral Cale Draven studied the display. This is it. Yes, Admiral. No large-scale fleet presence. No heavy fortifications. A faint smirk touched his expression. So, this is the species that destroyed 40 of our ships. Open a channel, he ordered. The signal broadcast across the system. Unidentified civilization. Draven's voice echoed through every frequency. You are in violation of Dominion authority. You have engaged and destroyed Dominion vessels. He paused. You will surrender immediately. Silence followed. Then, a reply. Instant.
Clear.
You came back. The same voice.
Calm.
Controlled.
Unchanged.
Draven's eyes narrowed slightly. You were given a chance, the voice continued. You ignored it. You destroyed Dominion assets. Draven replied. There are consequences for that. A brief pause. Then, we warned you. Draven exhaled slowly. This conversation is over. He turned slightly. Prepare planetary bombardment. The fleet shifted. Weapons aligned. Targeting systems locked onto the surface below.
Cities.
Oceans. Life. Admiral, the sensor officer said. What? There are new contacts. Draven didn't turn. Numbers? The officer hesitated. Unclear. That made him look. The tactical display flickered. Then filled. Contacts appeared across the system. Hundreds. Then thousands. Then
more.
Where are they coming from? Someone shouted. Multiple vectors, another yelled. Asteroid fields, no. Deep space, no. They're just appearing. The human fleet revealed itself. Not emerging. Not arriving. Already there. Hidden. Waiting. Draven's expression hardened. Finally, the Dominion fleet adjusted instantly. Formation tightening. Weapons shifting toward new targets. Engage. The first exchange began. Dominion firepower erupted across space. Massive beams. Missile storms. Area of effect detonations designed to wipe entire sectors. The humans did not meet it head-on. They moved. Not like ships. Not like fleets. Like something alive. They twisted between attacks. Slipped through targeting locks. Vanished from one position. And appeared in another. Tracking failing, the tactical officer shouted. We can't predict their movement. They're not following patterns, another added. Draven watched carefully. Analyzing. Adapting. Focus fire, he ordered. Suppress mobility. Force them into predictable vectors. Dominion ships adjusted. They began saturating space. Reducing maneuvering options. Creating kill zones. For a moment, it worked. A human ship took a direct hit. Its hull shattered. Debris scattered into space. Confirmed kill, the tactical officer said. But the victory lasted less than a second. Because the debris
moved.
Fragments reassembled. Energy fields reformed. The ship rebuilt itself. What? No, someone whispered. That's not possible. Draven leaned forward. Now this was interesting. Adaptive nanostructures, he said quietly. But even that explanation didn't fully fit. Because the speed was too fast. Admiral, multiple Dominion ships disabled. Draven snapped his attention back. Ships across his fleet were losing systems. Weapons offline. Engines dead. Shields collapsing. They're not destroying us, the tactical officer said. They're dismantling us. Precision.
Control.
Efficiency. The humans weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to decide how the battle ended. Push forward, Draven ordered. Break their formation. But there was no formation. That was the problem. The human fleet didn't behave like a fleet. It behaved like
an ecosystem.
Every ship acting independently, yet perfectly coordinated. Then, the transmissions came. Human voices flooded the comms. Target acquired. Nice shot. Careful, left flank. I got this one. Watch this. And then, laughter. Not madness. Not hysteria. Enjoyment. They're enjoying this, an officer said, horrified. Another Dominion ship exploded. Then another. Then 10 more. Numbers began to collapse. Admiral, we've lost 120 ships. 200. 300. Draven's jaw tightened. This was no longer a battle. This was control. And then
he saw it.
A human ship.
Crippled.
Burning. Drifting. A Dominion dreadnought locked onto it.
Fired.
The human ship should have died. Instead, it turned. Accelerated. Straight toward the dreadnought. No, someone began. The transmission came through. Same tone. Same calm voice. Different words. Worth it. Impact. The explosion consumed both ships. Draven stared. They're sacrificing themselves. No, another officer whispered. They're choosing to. There was a difference. And it mattered. Because fear-based species avoided death. These humans did not. Admiral, the sensor officer shouted. New contacts. Draven turned. More ships. Not hundreds. Not thousands. Tens of thousands. Hidden reserves. Deep space. Planetary orbit. Subsurface launch bays. They had been there the entire time. Waiting. This was a trap, someone said. Draven didn't respond. Because he already knew. The realization settled cold and heavy in his mind. This wasn't a defensive fleet. This was a controlled response. Measured. Calculated. Contained. And they had just escalated it. The human voice returned. You were given 2 chances.
A pause.
You will not receive a third. Draven looked at the battlefield. At the burning wreckage. At the collapsing formation. At the unstoppable enemy. And for the first time in his entire career, He understood. They had not entered a war. They had triggered one. The battle didn't turn. It ended. There was no single moment of collapse. No final maneuver. No decisive strike. Just a slow, unstoppable realization spreading across the Dominion fleet. They were losing. Admiral, formation integrity at 40%. Signal coordination failing. Ships are going dark across all sectors. The tactical display was no longer a battlefield. It was a graveyard in progress. Dominion ships, once arranged in perfect, mathematical precision, were now scattered fragments of a broken system. Burning, drifting,
Dying.
and the humans were everywhere. Not pressing aggressively, not rushing, just executing. Every movement precise. Every strike intentional. They're hurting us, one officer said, voice shaking. Draven didn't answer, because he could see it. The humans weren't chasing targets randomly. They were guiding them, controlling the battlefield, forcing Dominion ships into positions where escape was impossible. Engine groups failing. FTL drives offline across 60% of the fleet. They've cut off retreat vectors. Draven's grip tightened on the command rail. This was not war. This was containment. Return fire, he ordered. Full spread, no targeting patterns, just saturate space. Dominion weapons unleashed chaos. Beams, missiles, plasma arcs, everything fired without restraint. For a moment, space itself seemed to burn. And still, it wasn't enough. Human ships slipped through the destruction like shadows. Untouched. Unbothered. They're predicting us, the tactical officer said. No, not predicting, another corrected. They already know. That was worse. Much worse. A Dominion carrier exploded. Then another. Then an entire wing of destroyers vanished in synchronized detonations. They're inside our systems again. Security protocols failing. They're rewriting command structures. Draven's eyes widened slightly. They're not just attacking us. They're controlling us. That was the moment everything changed. Because the Dominion had always relied on superiority. Superior weapons. Superior strategy. Superior control. And now, that control was gone. Admiral, the communications officer shouted. Incoming transmission. Draven didn't want to hear it. But he had no choice. The human voice returned. Unchanged. You are no longer a threat. The words hit harder than any weapon. Not you will be destroyed. Not you are defeated. You are no longer a threat.
Dismissed.
Reduced. Irrelevant. Draven felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Not fear. Not yet. But close. You will leave this region, the voice continued. Immediately. Another explosion ripped through the fleet. Failure to comply. A pause. Will result in termination of remaining forces. Silence followed. Across the battlefield, Dominion ships were still dying. Still fighting. Still failing. Draven looked around his bridge. At his officers. At the damage reports. At the numbers dropping faster than he could process. 800 ships. Reduced to less than half. In hours. And the humans had barely escalated. This wasn't their full strength. This was restraint. That realization hit harder than anything else. Admiral, the tactical officer said quietly, we can't win this. No one argued. Because there was nothing left to argue. Draven closed his eyes for a brief moment.
Then open them.
Signal retreat. The words tasted like failure. But survival was still possible. Transmit to all remaining ships, he continued. Full withdrawal. Regroup at the sector boundary. Signals were sent. Ships began to turn. Engines flared. And for the first time since the battle began, the humans did not pursue. They let them go. That was the most terrifying part. Not the power. Not the destruction. The control.
The choice.
They could have ended everything.
They chose not to.
As the shattered remnants of the Dominion fleet limped toward the edge of Sector Null, Draven looked back. The human fleet remained in place. Silent. Watching. Not celebrating. Not chasing. Just waiting. As if they already knew this wasn't over. And far behind them, on the blue world they had come to destroy. No one cheered. No one celebrated, because they knew exactly what would come next, and they were ready for it. The survivors returned broken. 17 ships from the First Fleet, less than 300 from the Second. Out of 800, the Dominion had never recorded losses like this. Not in its entire 14,000-year history. Supreme Commander Vale Kor stood alone as the report streamed in. No spin. No excuses. No victories hidden behind strategic language. Just truth. We underestimated them, one advisor said carefully. Vale Kor didn't respond, because that word, underestimated, was too small. They allowed us to leave, another added. That implies. It implies control. A third finished. Silence. Because everyone understood what that meant. They chose not to destroy us, the first advisor said. Vale Kor finally spoke. No. The room stilled. They chose when to stop. That was worse, because it meant the outcome had never been in question. We should withdraw, one of the senior council members said. Seal the sector. Mark it forbidden. Redirect expansion elsewhere. For the first time, the Dominion considered retreat. And somewhere, deep beneath layers of pride and doctrine, that idea made sense. They issued warnings twice, another added. They showed restraint. They do not appear interested in conquest. Vale Kor turned slowly. Not interested in conquest. His voice was quiet. Then what are they interested in? No one answered, because the truth was unclear, and that uncertainty was dangerous. Commander, the intelligence officer said, we have intercepted transmissions from within the region. Play them. The room filled with images. Not battle. Not destruction. Aftermath. Human ships moving through debris fields. Recovering wreckage. Rescuing survivors. Dominion survivors. They're helping them, someone said, confused. It didn't make sense. These were enemies. Invaders. Destroyers. And yet, the humans pulled injured Dominion soldiers from wrecked ships. Stabilized them.
Treated them.
No interrogation. No execution. No punishment. Just help. Another recording appeared. A shattered Dominion cruiser. Life support failing.
Crew dying.
A human vessel approached.
Docked.
Medical teams entered. Within minutes, the dying stopped. They're saving them, an officer whispered. Vale Kor watched in silence. More recordings. Human ships entering abandoned systems. Freeing enslaved populations. Breaking Dominion control networks. Restoring infrastructure. Not conquering. Undoing. They're dismantling our empire, someone said. No. Another corrected quietly. They are replacing it. That hit harder than any defeat. Because conquest could be resisted. But replacement was permanent. A final transmission appeared. A human speaking.
Not to the Dominion.
To another species. We're not here to rule you, the human said. We're here to make sure no one ever does again. Silence filled the chamber. Because that was something the Dominion had never understood. Power without control. Strength without domination. It didn't fit their model of the universe. Vale Kor turned away from the display. They are not weak, he said. No one argued. They are not reckless. Agreed. And they are not merciful. That made a few hesitate. Vale Kor continued. They are choosing mercy. That was different. And far more dangerous. Because mercy implied control. Absolute control. They could destroy us, he said quietly. The room held its breath. But they don't want to. A long silence followed. Then the question no one wanted to ask. What happens if that changes? No one answered. Because everyone knew. Meanwhile, far beyond Dominion space, on the surface of the blue world called Earth, there was no celebration. No victory parades. No triumph. Only quiet. Secretary General Aurelion stood in a dimly lit chamber, looking at a projection of the galaxy. Dominion territory. Fragmenting. Collapsing.
Changing.
Behind her, a council of human leaders stood in silence. We stopped them, one of them said. Chen didn't respond immediately. No, she said finally. We delayed them. The room shifted. They will come back, another said. Yes. And next time? Qin closed her eyes for a moment. They won't underestimate us. Silence. And we won't hold back. That changed everything, because, until now, everything the Dominion had faced was restraint. Chun turned to face the council. We gave them 2 chances. Her voice was steady. They ignored both. She looked back at the stars. We cannot give them a 3rd. The weight of that settled heavily across the room, because everyone understood what it meant. Humanity had tried to be better. For centuries, they had chosen peace, restraint,
Control. But now,
they were being forced to remember something they had spent generations trying to forget, what they were capable of, and what they would become, if pushed too far. The Dominion chose war. Again. 6 months after the defeat of the Second Expansion Fleet, the galaxy changed. Shipyards burned at full capacity. Entire sectors were stripped of defenses. Occupation forces recalled. Reserve fleets activated. Everything the Dominion had was mobilized. 50,000 warships. The largest military force ever assembled in known history. Supreme Commander Vale Kor stood at the center of it all. He had made his decision. Not because it was logical, not because it was safe, but because it was necessary. The Dominion did not retreat. The Dominion did not yield. And the Dominion did not forgive. Begin advance, he ordered. The fleet moved. 50,000 ships surged towards Sector Null. A tidal wave of fire and steel. Enough to erase entire civilizations. Enough to burn worlds into memory. And this time, there would be no hesitation. No warnings. No second chances. Only annihilation. On Earth, they were waiting. Humanity had seen it coming. Tracked it. Measured it. Prepared for it. 50,000 ships. Not a surprise. A confirmation. They chose this, Qin said quietly. No one argued. Then we finish it, Admiral Reyes replied. This time, there was no debate. No hesitation. Because this time, there was no other option. Full mobilization, Qin ordered. Everything. Across human space, the response began. Shipyards opened. Hidden fleets activated. Deep space platforms came online. And something else. Signals spread beyond human territory. To every world the Dominion had conquered. Every species they had enslaved. Every civilization they had broken. The message was simple. Fight with us, and you will be free. Stand aside, and you will be free anyway. Stand against us, and you will still be free. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. The Dominion fleet entered Sector Null. And the war began. Not with a single battle, but with a collapse. Human forces struck first. From everywhere. Hidden fleets. Stealth vessels. Deep space ambushes. Dominion ships vanished before they could even form battle lines. But this time, the Dominion didn't break. They adapted. They pushed forward. And for weeks, the war burned. Ships died by the thousands. Worlds shook under orbital fire. Space itself became a battlefield. The Dominion had numbers.
Power.
Relentless force. And for the first time, they reached Earth. The blue world stood before them. Vale Kor watched it from his flagship. So this is where it ends, he said. Prepare bombardment. Weapons charged. Target locks engaged. The final order never came, because the system changed. Again. New contacts appeared. Not hundreds. Not thousands. Millions. Human ships. Allied ships. Ships of species the Dominion had conquered long ago. They filled the system. Every direction. Every vector. Every possible escape. They're not alone, an officer whispered.
No.
They weren't. Because humanity hadn't just prepared for war. They had changed it. The enslaved had risen. The broken had united. The galaxy had chosen a side. And it wasn't the Dominion. The battle that followed was not a battle. It was an ending. Dominion ships fell in waves. Not scattered. Not chaotic. Systematic. Every formation broken. Every command chain disrupted. Every advantage removed. Vale Corps watched it happen. 50,000 ships. Reduced.
Destroyed. Erased.
Not by a single enemy, but by a galaxy that had finally decided it was done being afraid. Retreat, someone began. There is nowhere left to retreat, Vale Corps said quietly. And for the first time in 14,000 years, the Dominion had no answer. The war lasted 3 years. 3 years of battles, of liberation, of collapse. And then, it ended. The Dominion was gone. Not conquered. Not replaced. Ended. On the ruins of what remained, human ships arrived. Not to rule. To rebuild. World by world.
System by system.
They freed. They healed. They restored. And then, they stepped back. No empire. No domination. Just something new. An alliance. Years later, a message spread across the galaxy. Not a warning. Not a threat. A statement. We are not your rulers. We are not your conquerors. We are what happens. A pause. When you push humanity too far. And in the quiet that followed, across a galaxy forever changed, everyone understood. Humanity did not want to be monsters, but they were very, very good at it.